Okay, this is a new series, and we're going to focus this on everyone who's doing e-commerce. And the goal is to talk about the business side of e-commerce. And I'll be here every week or so, and I'll bring in a new expert every time. Today's guest is Dale Harrison. So, Dale, what's our topic for today?
So let's talk about what your number one problem is if you're an e-commerce company and your name is not Amazon, which is basically no one knows you exist. And that's the thing you have to fight against if you want to grow.
Exactly, yeah. I think that distribution problem of your product, no matter whether it's software or you're selling like a physical good online, I think that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs, people who are getting started, underestimate. So if I think about the process of launching anything new, whether it's your own store or your own business, step one is you need to really solve a problem that people actually care about and are willing to pay money for, right? That in itself is a challenge. A lot of people get that wrong. But let's say you got that right. You spoke to a lot of customers and you identified a real pain, and then you figured out something that you're going to solve. Okay, well, you've completed step one. And then what's going to happen is step two, uh, where you're going to get stuck on is that your real problem is that no one knows that you exist. And if they don't know you exist, they don't know that they should buy from you. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs fall into this trap because they fall in love with the product, they fall in love with the idea itself, and maybe the solution that they come up with, and don't spend enough energy on figuring out how do you get in front of a lot of these potential customers. And I know you have written a lot of like LinkedIn articles, and you spend a lot of time thinking about this. So, kind of want to kick off with some higher level thoughts around this topic.
So, one of the things that you see a lot of companies do, and especially if you look in the e-commerce world, because we're very specifically you know talking to companies that are in the e-commerce business. Um, a lot of e-commerce companies tend to pour all of their marketing effort into performance ads or direct response ads. Um, you know, are do you want to buy an X today? We have X. Um, and the challenge with that is that we know that almost all potential buyers are not in market at any given time. This is the so-called 95-5 rule. Um, and so if you're only doing direct response ads where you want someone to, you're showing them the pair of shoes you're selling and you want them to click, on the pair of shoes and go to your site and order it. Um, the only people that's going to who are going to respond to that are people who are, at this very instant in time looking to buy that pair of shoes. And again, this goes back to this idea of the 95-5 rule, which says that roughly at any given time, only about 5% of your potential buyers are in market. So 95% of the people who might be interested in your product in the future are not going to be ready to click on a direct response ad. Um, so the question is when someone goes to buy a particular product, how do they end up choosing a supplier, a vendor? The number one way is they do a search, not on Google, but in their own brain. So they're searching
Yeah.
for they're asking themselves the question, who sells this item? And there will generally be, if I'm buying, I bought a pair of shoes online 2 days ago. When I did that, there were only 2 companies that popped in my head, Zappos and Johnston& and Murphy. And I never looked beyond that, and I ended up buying from Johnston& and Murphy, because that was what the search engine in my brain, pulled up when I asked the question, "Where can I buy some shoes?"
Yeah, there is. I think there is this powerful concept tied to that that I discovered this idea called zero-day consideration set. Basically, they are going to when you start the process, when you decide that you're going to buy a pair of shoes, or you want to buy a car, or you want to buy, I don't know, anything new. There's this idea that okay, you already have a consideration set in your mind. Can you walk us through that process? Like, what does that mean, and then how does that impact your entire marketing effort?
Well, and this goes to the heart of this thing about your number one problem is that no one knows you exist, because I if if your brand is not already in their head, then when they go to do that search inside their mind, you're not going to come up because you never got into the search engine.
Mhm.
Now, if they search their memory and nothing comes up, then they'll go to Google and they'll search Google. And so maybe you'll come up in Google, but you can rest assured that Google is the second search and they only go there if the first search failed, which is searching their memory.
Mhm.
Um, the other possibility of how someone finds you and again, this is very strong in kind of retail B2C e-commerce, which is they ask a friend. And and the friend may not have actually you know, bought so again, if you ask, a friend, "I wanna buy some shoes online," they likely will suggest something like Zappos simply because they've heard of Zappos, even if they've never actually bought from Zappos.
Mhm.
Or they will suggest somebody that, um, uh, that they actually have bought from. And so it becomes important not just to have your brand name directly in the minds of someone who's about to buy, but in the minds of the people that they're likely to ask. And this is one of the reasons why large companies and certainly in e-commerce, larger e-commerce sites tend to stay large and find it easier to grow,
Yeah.
not because necessarily that they're spending more money on their advertising, although that's typically also the case, but because there are so many people who already know who they are, either from prior direct experience or from having been exposed to their advertising. And so the more people that are out in the world that know your name that might be asked by a friend, the more likely it is that buyer ready to buy right now today is going to stumble across you. And so
Yeah.
it really comes down to how many brains are walking around that have your name in their head associated with the sort of products you sell.
Yeah, it seems like this is kind of closely tied to, I assume, the concept that I think Byron Sharp's idea of the double jeopardy, right? So if your brand's already really big, then there's more awareness about you, and therefore your like likelihood of growing is faster. So given this, right? Let's say I'm just launching a new Shopify store. How should I go about this? Because I don't have a huge brand, so not many people know about it. When should I start working on creating awareness about the brand? So, and then I think we can dissect it different ways. Do you create awareness about the brand? Is it versus the product? So, what's the good playbook? Let's say if I'm launching a new Shopify store with a new product.
Right. I mean, one question I guess is how unique the product is. I mean, if you're selling,
Yeah,
men's shirts, or you're selling, hats for women, um, uh, you probably have a lot of products and it's really about the product category. But the other thing is a lot of times you're selling someone else's product as well.
right.
So uh, at the end, what they really need to remember is your brand, and
Mhm.
partly because if they remember the product that you sell, but it's someone else's product, they're going to be able to find alternatives. But if the name that comes in their head is the name of your site, now they've got a chance of being able to go directly to that site. So again, y- you know, ideally, you want to be in a position where someone doesn't go to Google and search for shoes. They go to Google and they search for the word Zappos,
Mhm.
um, because now you've bypassed all the competition because they already know you. Presumably have enough trust that they're going to look for you first, and they're going to then land on your site. So I think it becomes important to connect the brand that is tied to your site, so that they can find you and connect that with the category of product that you're trying to sell. Now, again, there are exceptions. If you've got just a single product and that's all you sell, but oftentimes then the product name and the brand name will be identical because
Yeah.
you just have that one thing and you'll call the product the same thing that you call the company and the same thing you call the website. So even in that situation, it's still about the overall branding of the company.
Yeah, and I think most of the customers, most of the e-commerce merchants that I talk to, I don't think they're really selling. It's not that the product is unique, like you said. It's usually reselling an existing product or adding a twist to an existing. It's not like the product itself is not unique per se, but the way they are bringing it to the market is what the differentiator is. Or it could be like their branding attached to it, or it could be their support or whatever it is, right? So it's not necessarily always like a unique product, and they're the only ones in the world that sell it. So there's always a lot of competitors. So I guess the key there is like then your brand is what the people are paying for, or your brand is the reason they're coming to you, because that same product may be, or an identical product may be being sold by a bunch of competitors. And if you look at Amazon, for example, right, this is the huge problem. You know that the moment you're successful selling something through the Amazon marketplace and you're a small merchant, you get a lot of other people who start to sell like knockoffs or cheaply made products, trying to like ride that wave of success. So yeah, I mean, I would say that's probably is like a good situation to be in, because you're so successful that now you have people ripping you off. But I think for a lot of people, it's just really getting to that level of like, how are you going to create awareness about your brand? I think that's the piece that they
Right.
need to really think about.
Well, and I think the example of an Amazon store is a good example because most people that go onto Amazon, they think of Amazon as the brand the brand
Yeah.
that they're buying from. And then they're gonna do a generic category search. They're gonna search for, um, you know, baseball caps,
Hmm.
and, they are probably not gonna search for the particular name of a supplier of baseball caps. Now, again, y there are exceptions to this. If you're Nike, a lot of people are gonna go on and they're gonna type in the word Nike, they're not gonna type in the word shoes.
Hmm.
Um, but, but for the most part, in that kind of an environment, um, people are gonna go, they're gonna type in a generic category search term, and then they're gonna see maybe you and maybe a lot of other people. Um, and in that situation, it also, though, becomes really important that 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 people have the ability to recognize your brand name.
Hmm.
Because, if I see, you know, 6 different versions of the hat I wanna buy, but, and 5 of these are, random Chinese companies I've never heard of before, and one of them is a company that I've actually heard of before and have bought
Hmm.
from. I am far more likely to visually pick that out of the list and to be able to then select that as the first thing I look at. And you see the same thing in Google. If if no one knows your name, but you show up in the Google search results, you're really just part of the noise. That the most likely results
Hmm.
that get clicked on in a category generic search on Google are gonna be brand names that people recognize already,
Yeah.
because that's gonna jump out of the noise as something recognizable, and we always have a tendency to go toward things that we recognize,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
and, um, but and this also, I think, ties into this notion of you wanna be able to connect your key branding elements to your product categories,
Hmm.
so that if someone thinks about a product category, um, then they will think of your brand name. So, a couple of weeks ago, I bought a flat cap, and uh, like what all the characters wear in uh, Beaky Peaky Blinders, the show Peaky Blinders.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and you know, when I thought of flat caps, there was one brand that came to mind, Biddy Murphy, which is a company that they don't just sell flat caps, but they basically specialize in selling all sorts of goods that are made in Ireland that are very tied to Irish heritage that get imported into the US.
Hmm.
And uh so I didn't go look beyond that because
Hmm.
when I thought, an Irish cap, I thought Biddy Murphy, and I went directly to their site, and uh and incidentally, I then went to Amazon and actually ordered it through Amazon, not directly from their site,
Yeah.
uh, because I had never ordered from them before, but I knew that if I ordered through Amazon, credit card's already set up. The
Yeah.
I know that if there's any kind of an issue, I can do a simple
Yeah, the
return.
return process super easy. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so all of the other stuff works. So again, even if they end up buying on Amazon, it
Yeah.
still becomes important that they know that you exist, that they see you as a choice, and that when they do that first search of their own memory, you come up high in the list of things that they remember when they're trying to connect, a category, a product category with a place to buy something from that category.
Exactly. I think, yeah, that Amazon thing, right? It brings up another interesting point. So obviously a lot of us are searching for Amazon on Amazon for the product. What if I search for the category and you're not even there? You're not even selling through Amazon. So you basically are just going to lose the sale to your competitor, right? So this also, I think it highlights the importance of being omni-channel. Yes, you should have like a really strong brand, and then you should you should have your own like Shopify or BigCommerce or Magento, whatever store it is through which you're selling that. But at the same time, you should also be on that shelf at Amazon because that's how a lot of people are even going to discover you. So if you're not there, if you is that do you agree with that assessment that you
Absolutely.
need to?
And
Yeah.
I'll tell you a very specific story. So I looked at an e-commerce, this is a consumer products e-commerce company. They had spent 10 years developing a really strong brand. Um, and so if you're buying within this product category, and I won't name them, but if you're buying within this product category, lots and lots of people will think of them, at the as the top 2 or 3 or 4 names in this category. And they had had a long time kind of full portfolio presence on Amazon. So all of their products. And then they made a decision about 3 or 4 years ago, that they were gonna basically exit from retail because they were also had retail distribution, through one of the major big box stores. And, so they decided to basically exit from retail and go strictly, selling through their own site because the profit margins were
Hmm.
significantly higher. And
Yeah.
this is a common problem that I think all e-commerce businesses face, especially in the B2C world. Um, and so one of the choices they made was to go from their full portfolio of products available on Amazon to only, like, I think it was just 2 of their lowest end products.
Hmm.
Um, so just the really cheap stuff and just 2 of them.
Right.
And, and I remember when I had an initial need for one of their products, they were one of the first names to come to mind. I went to Amazon. I was looking for a very specific product from them that I was familiar with. I typed their brand name in and the product name, nothing came up because
Mm.
they had pulled those products from Amazon.
Yeah.
What came up instead were, 25 other brands with a similar or equivalent product. And I can tell you that day, I went in and in spite of having started that Amazon buying experience by directly typing in their brand name, I
Hmm.
ended up buying from someone else
Yeah.
because they weren't there. And
Yeah.
so that's the other thing is that, you have to think about where are the most likely places people are going to search for your product, and certainly for consumer products. If you're looking at the sort of consumer products that a company like Amazon sells, high likelihood people are going to use Amazon as the search engine.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
and if you're not present in Amazon, Amazon will be perfectly happy to show you 25 alternative choices.
Right.
And uh, so you can also defeat a lot of very good effort by not thinking all the way through with where are people going to, even if they know your brand name, where are they
Yeah.
likely to be typing your brand name into, and are you going to have a physical presence there? And again, going back to um, some of the stuff you're talking about before, this idea of mental availability and physical availability. Mental
Right.
availability is, are you already in their head? And
Hmm.
then physical availability is, now that they want to buy from you, is it easy to buy from you? Do you make
Yeah.
yourself available through the primary distribution channels?
Yeah, this reminded me, I think I've read this meme somewhere of like ketchup and customer loyalty. or it was some, I don't know, maybe some other product. So this is idea of like the customer is always going to be loyal to you. They walk into the supermarket shelf and they don't see your product, they just buy the next one, and the entire marketing team is like shocked that this customer has been loyal to us for like 15 years, and what caused the switch? It was very simple. Like they were just looking for the product, they didn't find it, so they just found the next best product right next to it on the shelf, and they just decided, okay, that's what I'm going to buy, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so this reminded me of that concept, your story of like just switching and buying the next best product that you found on Amazon.
Right. And yeah, an example of the company I was talking about that decided to largely exit from retail distribution,
Hmm.
looking back over the last 3 or 4 years, what you've seen is a steady drop in traffic um, to their own website, because the whole idea of this was we're just going to force people to buy from our own website,
Yeah,
and because then we'll have higher margins. And what you saw was basically uh, a steady about 65% drop in revenue over 4 years that was accompanied by a steady 65% drop in Google searches over that same
mm,
period of time. And when I compared this to their two most direct competitors, both of those competitors had seen a 50% growth uh, uh, in search traffic, and at least one had seen that had publicly available information had a 50% growth in revenue over the
yeah,
exact same period of time. So it wasn't like the market was shrinking. It was like, you know, if you make it too difficult for someone to buy, they're perfectly happy to buy from your competitor, even if they know about you.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. I think it's a tricky situation for a lot of like smaller e-commerce merchants, because the general feel about Amazon is that everyone obviously wants control of their own brand, so they want to have their own site and they want to have like the direct link or contact with the customer. If you go on Amazon, the risks that you run obviously are you most likely don't have access to the customer because Amazon masks a lot of that information. And then there is this risk that everyone talks about. If your product becomes very successful, is Amazon going to copy you? I think all those risks are still there, but you should also look at the flip side of it, exactly the story that you just described. By not being on Amazon, how's that could have a potential impact on your brand and your main site itself, and you could be losing a lot of traffic and a lot of visits. So it needs to be. It's not like a clear-cut story of one is better than the other. There are pros and cons of being on Amazon, so you just need to be careful in making that decision when it comes to going omni-channel and on which all platforms you're listing.
Well, and the other thing to think about is kind of one last point here is that, again, if you're in the B2C space, so you're
Hmm.
selling retail products to end consumers, um, your retail distribution strategy is your primary brand awareness driver.
Hmm.
And I'll give you a very specific example. So, um, that's middle of last year, 6 months ago, I decided to grow a beard. So the beard is new. And
Yeah.
um, so I had, before that, never in my life had I needed to buy products related to beards, other than razors. And but one particular brand of beard products is a company called Cremo. It's a publicly traded, or they're part of a publicly traded company. Um, they have, from day one, they really focused on broad retail distribution. So they're in, Randall's and HEB and Kroger's and all the major supermarkets, and they're in the big box stores like Target, Walmart, those, and and they're right there on the aisle where you're buying razor blades and shaving cream. So, you know, every month
Hmm.
I'm in the grocery store buying unrelated products to them,
Right.
but I see them. And so when I decided that, I needed to buy something related to beard, uh, the very first thing that popped up in my head was Cremo. Not
Hmm.
because I knew anything about them, not because I'd ever, not as far as I know, I never even saw an ad from them.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I had no experience with the product, but every single time I bought, razor blades or shaving cream, there was their separate little section, right next to it in the supermarket, and I kept seeing their name twice a
Yeah.
month, on a regular schedule for
Hmm.
years. And and I think this is something that people do not fully appreciate in the retail space, is that your retail distribution strategy is an absolute key driver of your branding,
Hmm.
which also means your packaging strategy, your store shelf placement and display strategy. These are primary drivers of brand awareness, because you're exposing yourself to people who are not currently buying, maybe not even currently a potential customer, but is potentially a future customer.
Yeah.
And and so to not have a retail distribution strategy, not have an Amazon strategy or a Walmart strategy,
Mm.
is significant. You're forcing future buyers to go through much more complicated processes to know that you exist.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and uh, and I think this is something that people really need to kind of think about in terms of the retail distribution strategy is more than just distribution. It is exposing your product and your brand and your key branding elements to future
Yeah.
buyers on a regular basis every time they see you on the shelf.
Yeah. I think that's a very important, very deep point, and a lot we can talk a lot more about this, because it's not brand awareness is not just about like buying ads on Facebook or uh, Twitter or wherever. It's also, you have to kind of like think about it holistically, look at the entire how your business runs, and a lot of different aspects to look at. I think there's like we can probably spend a lot more time diving into different aspects of this. So I'll definitely want to have more discussions with you today. I think we are kind of running out of time. So I want to wrap up this for today, and I'm sure we'll definitely have Dale and I will have more of these um, in the next few weeks, and we'll dig into like more topics around this. And if you guys want, is there anything specific, any specific topics that you want me to talk or bring up with Dale, just shoot me a direct message on LinkedIn, and then we can cover that. With that, I'm going to wrap up today, and I just want to do a plug for Ordoro. So Ordoro is a platform, a logistics platform for small to medium-sized e-commerce merchants. If you're using us, you can use us. You can use our platform for managing all your orders, keeping track of inventory across multiple channels: Shopify, BigCommerce, WooCommerce, Amazon. There are lots of different channels that we connect across, and then we can help you manage all your shipping, all your inventory, and all your drop shipping. So go take a look at us. With that, I'm going to wrap up today's LinkedIn Live, and then most likely, I think the next episode will probably be next week, and just follow me on LinkedIn, and you should see a notice about that, a post about that coming up soon. Thank you.
So till next time.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.